Hey, hello everyone.
Hiya.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you all.
Back on camera.
I'm a bit whacked about today because I've been looking for houses, looking for flats, and I've just suddenly realised that the area I've been looking in, I don't want to live in it.
No.
So that's a problem. I also realised after getting the new, like doing that exchange thing for a new car. You know the way you can do that. I'm only a recent driver, so this is all new to me, but I just did it. I got a new Mini, and I realized I don't need it. I don't need it in London.
No, that's fair. You don't really need a car.
Yeah, it's like just like having a little flat that you can't drive or you'll get points. a little extra flat that I have to drive around, and so I think I'm gonna drive back to Norwich and sell it. Yeah. Forgot that. I forgot about London being that way, that you could just get everywhere. I've even got a ferry near me that I can take. It's amazing.
Yes, brilliant.
Anyway, sorry. Very dull beginning to the show, but it can only get better. We have had a week of interesting things. Well, a couple of weeks of interesting things. First of all was our live mess.
Yes, I was going to say I really enjoyed it. We haven't really spoken that much since, have we? And it was great.
No. Oh, it was so great to do it live. We've been wanting to do it for so long, and it was so much fun for us three of us to be together, chatting like we always do, but in the room, in person with you commenters and watchers alongside us. It was really great. It was so much fun.
Really enjoyable, and everyone, the audience were great, and the drinks afterwards were great with them. I just really loved it.
Rosie was in great form.
Oh, Rosie was awesome.
Yes, Rosie K was light. Yes.
So we're hoping to have other special guests when we do another one, which we think we will probably after Christmas. I think because
yes, I think so. It'd be great.
Yeah. So watch this space for news of that. So let's go.
Brace yourself, whatever town you're in. We might be marching into your town.
Yeah, we want to do one in Wales, we want to do one in Scotland, and we want to do one in Ireland. So
and maybe up in the north of England as well.
No. Yeah, absolutely. Now the let's work our way backwards from most recent bit of shenanigans to ones that may be slightly more difficult to remember our take on. But like the first one obviously is that Stephen Fry has been trending all day because his giddy golly friends are upset by JK Rowling, and he doesn't want to choose sides because he'll upset, quote unquote, his intersex friends. For a group that makes up 0.2222% of the population, he actually has friends in plural. He has more than one intersex friend. So
do you think he's mixed them up with non-binary?
I think that's exactly right. And also, I just don't want to choose sides. It's not like we're watching that Twilight series and you have to choose Team Jacob over Team Vampire Guy.
Yes.
You know what I'm Edward. It's not like, I just don't want to upset people's feelings. I can't pick a team.
He's a nice guy, unlike all of those really horrible people who are just saying mean things like, maybe women should have single-sex toilets. Maybe we've just not been saying it in the right way. Like
his biggest mistake is thinking that saying, why don't both sides stop being so nasty and refusing to take a side. His big mistake is that is not a neutral act. It's not a neutral act not to take a side. You're helping the people who sent death and rape threats to JK Rowling. And I've just written something there where I've asked Stephen Fry, one of my questions gets immediate responses from the celebrity class. But I've asked Stephen Fry if he'll sign the letter we wrote that Tom Stoppard and John Cleese signed. If he's not going to sign that, then why not? Like what would be controversial or picking a side about defending J.K. Rowling from death and rape threats?
Yes, exactly. It's an odd thing, isn't it? It's an odd medium it's an odd center ground to tread.
Yes,
isn't it?
And he's also throwing a side under the bus when he's saying that he was being patronizing and insulting to people who are seeing the problems in this. So you really can't say you don't have a side. And he didn't just say he didn't have a side, because he kind of implied that women's rights activists and advocates and gay rights activists and advocates and child protection rights activists and advocates and freedom of speech activists and advocates, et cetera, were somehow being bad, you know?
Yes.
He wasn't just saying, look, I see where they're coming from and I don't want to be there. He was saying they're being bad and I'm being better than them and being nicer than them.
I know. It's so annoying. These people who just wade in and think, as if other people have just been saying things in the wrong way, or they've just been a bit too nasty. They haven't quite seen the light as he has.
Yes.
Genuinely, like, get over it, man.
It's very so solipsistic. They're just looking into themselves and their personal feelings and having no ability to understand. Well, I feel I'm a nice guy and I know I just like to do the nice thing. Obviously, they must have some other kind of wiring in their brains. To have that lack of theory of mind about how everyone else works, to think that somehow JK Rowling doesn't also want to be a nice person and have compassion for people, like, how can he not understand?
And if you look back at times like this in the past, let's say the McCarthyism, the People's Revolution, Nazism, all these moments when authoritarian bullies started to gain power, and a lot of people looked the other way. Stephen Fry is very familiar. He's deliberately not seeing the issues. He's deliberately ignoring the abuse that his friend JK Rowling has received. Like, when it comes to that abuse, how much money has JK Rowling made Stephen Fry over the years? And this is the way he repays her.
Yeah.
He
but
just
also all these other movements,
completely ignores the fact that she's receiving rape and death threats, that only one side sends these rape and death threats, because he's just become the executive producer of a film that has a good-looking young star who plays a intersex runaway. You know what I mean? And it's like, your intersex runaway friends are fucking lying to you, Stephen, and you're allowing you're allowing little kind of cupids to obscure your vision on all this. It's very simple. You oppose rape and death threats to women. It's that simple, So for Stephen Fry to fucking sit back and think that it's enough to say, oh, I don't want to get involved. God, again, I'm sick of saying it, but shame on you, Stephen.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, like I was saying, the centre ground is really quite skewed, isn't it? It's not in the middle.
No.
It's not in the middle. It's way over here.
That's right.
That's the centre.
We know.
We've as a society, we've allowed this movement to get away with so much that it's the norm. People excuse it, don't they? They excuse it. They say, "Oh well, yes, but they're under attack. They're just pushing back." You must expect a marginalised community that's full of that gets that are all killed at a high rate. You would expect them to push back because they're under attack, so they can't really help this. It's fair that they're being horrible because they're under attack. I mean, it's like somebody said the other day. That it was mainly that, like, transactivism, there's a lot of taking something that looks really terrible and trying to normalize it, like those chaps getting their moves out at that protest in New York. And that one bloke is just like fondling them and looking at them, and you're like, what the actual fuck is going on here? And people are like, oh God, there's a long history of women topless protesting. Oh my God, don't you know your feminist history? And it's people trying to normalize, really, like, way out their behavior.
They also spat and punched another Stonewall veteran. Artie, do you remember his name? Jim something.
Oh, no, not off the top of my head. Sorry, I'm just on my.
It was. I'll find that out now. Someone might help me out by writing.
Yeah, scandalous. Yeah.
But like, basically, this is another veteran of not Stonewall, but the actual Stonewall, the real Stonewall. And that's the second veteran to be spat on, punched, or as in the case of Fred Sargent, had a fucking coffee poured over his head. Stephen Fry, you can't be neutral in this. You cannot be. You cannot stand by while these things are happening. You know, like you just can't. You have to pick a side. It's that.
I still can't believe that hasn't been on the front page of the New York Times. The founder of Gay Pride was violently assaulted at a gay pride parade for wearing a political slogan in defense of gay rights. So you literally cannot go to a gay pride march anymore, or you'll be violently assaulted by the kinds of people who are there now, who are either queer or trans and have nothing to do or care about LGBT anymore. It's literally happened. This should have been all over the front pages of everything. And everyone, it's just so normalized now that it's just so passé to be a homosexual, and that, you know, these queer and trans movements, which are just identity nonsense all the way down, are the new thing and are the most important thing in the world. It's crazy. Yeah, I can't believe it. And now another gay rights advocate. This wasn't at a pride march, but it was at a protest involving, you know, gay rights and women's rights. It's outrageous. Yeah, Stephen Fry, shame on you as a very prominent gay figure in the UK and in the US, around the world. He's very much known everywhere. He has no excuse to be looking the other way when this happens, you know?
Absolutely.
Oh, what a lovely young lady. Who's this?
Oh, has that gone up? Have I shared it already? Oh, this is Lisa. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I just wanted to bring this up. How did you know it was a lady? Did you check his Do you know who this is? This is very funny, actually.
Who is it?
I just have to find. Wait. I'm sorry. I should have been much more prepared. But this is a woman, a lovely woman by the name of Melissa Ingle, who was the her who was the content moderation for Twitter, who has just been fired.
That was the content moderation person.
Really?
Oh my! Well, doesn't that explain so much?
So this man with a woman's name and a woman's pronouns was in charge of misinformation on Twitter.
Of course, that meant people acknowledging that that's an obvious bloke. My God, like
so much stuff is unbelievable that it is completely believable.
Yeah. I just saw that and it's like, you know.
I know.
I said this with Twitter, that in many ways when Elon comes in, it's going to be like a kind of a WikiLeaks moment, because we're going to discover a lot of secrets at the same time. And one of them is that, you know, Twitter's had at its controls, the public square has had at its controls a bunch of men who've been silencing feminists and wearing women's skin like serial killers. And this
all happened. Yeah. At first, people were just like, let's hire these trans-identified people as a token gesture of being progressive, and they didn't realize that you're not just bringing in someone with a marginalized identity. You're bringing in someone with a massive ideological agenda, and you're putting them in charge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Very true, yeah, and I think that you're going to see a lot more examples of that. And I really find it interesting. I'm loving the panic amongst Twitter celebs about Elon coming in. They know that I think they're right to panic. They know it's not good for them, because they've been able to do things like ignore issues like the way Stephen Fry ignores the issue of what's happening to his friend JK Rowling. They've been able to do this because of Twitter's infrastructure, which kind of allows celebrities to just simply ignore anything that doesn't work for them, or these trans rights activists. You know, we've also got things like hidden replies, stuff like that. You'll see that coming. You know, basically whenever trans rights activists tweet, they always turn off replies on their thing, and if they don't, they hide the replies they don't like.
I think I don't mind turning off replies. I think that's okay. But the hiding of replies, I don't think that's a reasonable thing.
Well, I'll tell you what. But Helen,
shows a skewed debate, doesn't it? It's kind of a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I will just put a little proviso on what I was saying. I mean, the thing is, they turn off replies, but they always say things like, "It puzzles me why people think this," or "I wonder what transphobes would say if we," and it's like, why are you turning off
you're not letting them say it. Yeah. If only someone would come to me and explain this to me. Yeah, by the way, I'm turning off the ability for me to hear anything. They're literally putting their fingers in their ears while they're saying, Can somebody please explain this to me? You know,
it's actually a kind of a little bit of a relation to Stephen Fry's selective blindness. You know, it's like, you know, we can ask these questions, we can pretend we have curiosity, and we can pretend we want to get to the bottom of something, but they never do. I saw someone literally just ask the question, trans folks, please tell me this, you know, why is blah, 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 blah. What, yeah, what's it got to do with you? That was the question. What's it got to do with you, right? And the first reply was from Aja, who says, well, you know, here's a lesbian pride march where lesbians weren't allowed, or something like that, you know, one of along those lines of outrage we've seen recently. And then after a while, he has another reply on the thread that just says, turning off replies for a while. Thanks to everyone who engaged in good faith.
Although I'm really bored of this disingenuous. But what is the problem here? Like, I think I've said this many times before. The arguments have all been made now. You know, I'm really bored. Like, I spent years explaining patiently one-on-one to people. But in a way, and that was not an unreasonable thing to do, because it does allow you to rehearse your arguments. It makes you think exactly about what you're advocating for. But now, if somebody's like, oh, well, but what is the problem? Why do you want single-sex toilets? And you're like, honestly, if you're not prepared, not prepared for this argument, then go and do your research and then come back. You know, the arguments are all done. They're out there. There's no excuse for not knowing.
And
yeah,
that's
it's
part
like,
of the
you're putting all
problem.
this labor on us. Like, you have to at least do a little bit of your own work. You can't just make us hold your hand through steps 1 to 3 every time. Like, you know,
that's just a way of wasting your time now. But did you see, like, both the New York Times and Reuters have had an article out over the last few days. So the New York Times did one on puberty blockers.
Yeah.
Oh.
Saying that. You know,
but they still use the phrase assigned at birth.
Well, they all do. I mean, I still think that there's, you know, you've got the regulations, the sort of press regulations, the IPSO regulations that, you know, maybe constrain the way you have to talk. Or maybe they just think that, like Stephen Fry, that they're kind of being neutral. They're presenting something, but, you know, in order to get people to read it, they have to use some language
tell you,
that will allow, you know, otherwise people will just dismiss them and say, oh, look, it's transphobic language, blah, blah, blah. They'll do it anyway.
I think you're being very kind, but I genuinely don't think they do have to use that language.
No, I don't think that they have to.
It's so contentious, they could easily not use it. It's a political decision to use it. And what's frustrating to me about these pieces about puberty blockers is one of them in particular, I think it was the New York Times, said exactly what Abigail Schreier had her pulped and fucking not pulped, you know, it was like banned and fucking.
But the Reuters one, which I think was out yesterday, saying, you know, there's a huge rise, you know, there's a big rise, you know,
there's a sudden rise.
This has been going on for ages, and there are people who know why it is, and there's some, you know, there are some attempts to sort of answer it, and you're like, they barely touched on the societal aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, but it's there, you know, they're big. These are big stories. They've got big circulation. So it is slowly getting out into the mainstream and the American mainstream as well. Which
this is really important. But can we just, because I'm traveling at the moment, if you're wondering what's behind me, I'm in Ireland at the moment, on the west coast of Ireland, in a friend's guest bedroom. But because I've been traveling, I haven't been on Twitter as much the last few days. So the New York Times ran a piece about puberty blockers that I imagine was delving into the problem with puberty blockers, or was it talking about that countries have been banning them and
all of that,
Oh, that's, and then what was the Reuters one? What was their? So New York Times sounds like it at least introduced to American audiences that there are
a massive rise in girls.
In girls,
but and a lot of talking about, you know, top surgery and the Dr. Titus Deletus, and you know how some really young girls can get a double mastectomy. It certainly wasn't a piece that was saying, you know, this is great. It had some stories of some regret and some of I'm very happy, or I'm still happy.
That leads on to that extraordinary thread we all saw yesterday of a very overweight trans man who wrote a thread about how Dr. Mengele, whatever her fucking name is, I hate it.
I read that. Yeah.
Woman. But she did the operation, and he was talking about how, you know, it keeps opening up and there's gases inside it and all this.
Yeah. So this was a girl. This was a young girl who'd had top surgery.
Yeah. And then the interesting thing that happened is when people from our side, you know, wrote to say, you know, to send their sympathies and to, you know, talk about it, she attacked them because they're TERFs, and she still believes that transition is a good thing. And it's interesting because it also reflects the slowness of certain, like God, if you've had your tits worked on by Dr. Mengele, then you'd think you'd be a TERF by now. But it's so powerful, this bullshit that's gotten to kids' heads, that she's resisting the obvious truth about it, you know. And you see people like Andrew Sullivan as well, the gay writer who's a Substack. He used to be with The Atlantic. I think he's now got his own Substack. And he's like talking about how we need to make sure we definitely mutilate the right kids. We can't be mutilating the wrong kids. We got to be mutilating the trans kids.
You can see what they're doing. You can see they're just looking at the spectrum of what's going on here and positioning themselves on the place along the spectrum that appeals to their vanity. You know, Andrew Sullivan is like, well, my vanity says that I'm very pro-gay rights. I'm a gay man, obviously. And my vanity says that this sounds very pro-gay rights. So I'm going to position myself here, where it's like, we should be giving lots of sex changes to a certain number of gay kids, but not to other ones. You know, a little bit of both sides of them. But it's all internal. They're all looking into their, how do I want to present myself how do I want to fit myself into the chorus of what's going on in the media landscape? It's they're not looking outwardly at, like, where is the evidence? Where does the evidence take me to conclude where I should be standing based on the facts? They're saying, I'm looking at a landscape and I want to put myself in the nicest seat that comforts me the most. That's just not the way people should be doing politics. No, but it is, of course, the way people psychologically do politics.
The narrative that there is a cohort of people who are trans and there are some who are not. And it's basically how, as you say, how do we find the right ones? How do we make sure that, you know, we don't get the ones who have falsely decided that they're trans without their identities being fixed? This was all in the righteous thing. And it really occurred to me that, you know, I'm sure there are plenty of people, plenty of adults who are happy in their transition.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that it's the only way they could have been happy. You know, like, I've got loads of friends and they're great, but I'm absolutely certain that had I ended up living in a different town, I'd have different friends and they'd be great. I'd be really happy with them, you know? I married this really nice chap and I'm really happy with him, but I'm certain that I could have married like loads of different men in different, you know, if I'd have been in different towns, different places, gone to a different university or a different job, and I'd have been perfectly happy there as well. And so this idea that there's just this one way, I mean, yes, so they're happy, but it still doesn't mean that transition is a good thing.
Well, here's the thing, Helen. Like, and this is why, again, what you're talking about in terms of our frustration about getting into these endless debates with people, but like, there's certain key debates that have been skipped, and because those key debates have been skipped, we are in this kind of ridiculous fight. And the key debate that's been skipped in this case is, what does the word trans mean?
What does it mean?
No one fucking knows. If you say, oh, it's someone who has gender dysphoria, suddenly that's considered hate speech, you know? So you can't say it's mental illness. So it's not a mental illness. Well, what is it? Well, Eddie Izzard has it. Okay, Eddie Izzard has it. And so does Ellen Page. Right. So Eddie didn't have to cut off his dick, but Ellen Page had to cut off her tits. How does that work? Do you know what I mean?
There's it's not falsifiable. You know, in science, there's this thing called falsifiability. Nothing is even a plausible argument unless it's at least theoretically possible that you could argue against it. If you have an idea that something might be true, it has to be at least theoretically possible to prove whether it is true or not. It has to be theoretically possible to find a way to, you know, that it's not true. The theory that the Earth revolves around the sun, there's a theoretical possibility that it doesn't, and you could look at the evidence and it turns out the Earth does revolve around the sun and not vice versa. There's evidence, but an argument about transness, it's not falsifiable. It's like queer. You know, the word, it's not possible to say
Yes.
that you're queer but not
Yeah.
really be queer, and it's not possible to sort of to say that you're not queer but secretly you really are queer. To say that you're queer is what makes you queer, and trans is the same. It's not
Yeah.
possible to falsely be trans because it's unfalsifiable. If you say that you're trans, that's the whole ball game.
Yeah.
There's no,
Yeah.
it's not like gay. It's possible to
No.
say that you're gay and not be gay. It's possible to say that you're not gay and actually be gay. There's
It's
a thing
possible to-
separate from the
it's
saying
possible-
of it. It's falsifiable when you say you're gay or not. It's
It's
like,
po-
well, there's
it's
a way of
possible to
proving
say-
that. There's
it's
no way of
possible-
proving it with trans. Yeah.
It's possible to say you're gay when you're not and have a very uncomfortable night. But it's not. It's very possible to say you're trans and for your day to continue just as it did before you said it. You know, like look at the two hilarious pranksters who were on Only Connect, where this is a straight couple, and the wife has short hair, so she thinks she's a bloke, and the husband has done this hilarious thing where. It's been called out so much that they call themselves a queer couple that he's developed a kind of type of Larry Grayson act for the cameras, and it's genuinely very, very funny. But it's but again, you know, if they're walking down the road together and you know a gang of homophobic looking thugs, don't know what that would look like, but a gang of homophobic looking thugs come by them, they're not going to be bothered by these guys because they're a straight couple, you know. So it's so insulting when you see fucking people like Fred Sargent and again his name's jumped out of my Jim attacked and these people are going around calling themselves queer, which is the word that's used to attack people. One of the trans rights activists who was opposing Posey's event called him a faggot.
Yeah. Oh, I was just hanging out last night in Dublin with a dear friend of mine who I can't name who he is, but he's a friend of mine. He's gender critical gay man, absolutely delightful person. And he was talking about, he was in San Francisco recently, and there was some application form for some kind of grant or something. And it was all about, it was a grant that was only eligible for LGBTQI plus people, which basically means anyone. But in the application form for this grant, the part where it asked you what your gender was had like 97 entries. Some of them were outrageous, like
Yes.
gender fuck. Gender fuck is a formal, you know, you're gonna get a government grant if you're gender fuck. And under the part with your sexuality, the options were heterosexual, faggot, or other. There was no homosexual. They literally took out the word homosexual, but faggot, and not even joking. That's San Francisco. That's where they think they're being edgy. Some, you know, actual literal truth, you know. And he was also telling me about how he knew a couple of people who were straight couples who were just really getting overboard with their self-righteousness once they started identifying as queer, mocking cis people and mocking cis homosexuals. And it's like these were straight couples doing this. And, you know, he's a gay man. He's saying, I'm getting really upset. My straight friends who, you know, fell into queerazoid nonsense are just really becoming viciously homophobic on a daily basis. It's terrible.
Most amazing ability to troll, isn't it? It's giving people license to just troll others. It's been incredible. I've been absolutely astonished how people have just taken it up. You thought, honestly, like if you look back at history, you'd thought that people would have kind of got over it by now. But honestly, people love to be self-righteous, don't they? And call other people out. It's incredible. But it really is.
One of the good things about this for me is that it kind of revealed my part in all that, you know, that I ran with the herd a bit myself, you know, before all this kicked off. Yesterday I was in touch with you know, someone from Spiked, you know, Spike magazine, that's always been a bête noire for me because I was always so mortally offended by what I saw as climate change denial, you know. But then, you know, when you see them talking to people like Genevieve Gluck, who as again another scandal that's in plain sight, no one's touching, where she found out that WPath was linking to a website called the Eunuch Archives, which featured hundreds of stories about cutting little kids' dicks off, you know.
I know, and it's still not massive mainstream news.
I know. And so, my feeling is, wow, was there always a bunch of agendas that I wasn't aware of? Like, it was only through getting into the gender fight that I realized, oh, they're fucking completely lying to our faces. The Guardian did a report on mermaids today, hilariously admitted, like, was it you, Helen, who pointed out, admitting that they haven't covered it? Oh no, maybe it was Sarah Filmer. I can't remember who said it, but like, they basically, there's like a ton of news about mermaids because they haven't covered it. They just have ignored it. And now they finally just can't quite ignore it. And it's still couched in all this, oh, it's probably not mermaids, they're probably fine, it's just an investigation and all this panic, but
yeah, but it's only Saturday. Tomorrow, Sunday, The Observer, they'll probably be really good.
Observer will do some good. But I guess my point is just that, like, Kemi Badenoch was very good recently. She did an interview and she said that one of the I want to talk about primary problems, and one of the primary problems this fight throws up, apart from the fucking meaning of the word trans that everyone's using and not knowing, is what is the truth? Like, we really don't have anyone we could trust. If another COVID happens or anything similar, or let's say the Russians get so frustrated with Ukraine that they have a crazy moment, and something happens, who do we trust? Who do we go to for our news? The Guardian has been lying to us for 4 years. We know that, if not longer. The Independent, the Metro are exactly the same. The BBC is exactly the same. They're lying and lying and lying. They're calling people like Posey far right. They're doing all this ideological stuff. So, like, when there's an emergency, when something happens, who do we go to? Who do we look to for the truth?
It has been one of the most astonishing things to me that people aren't able to see past their own self-interest and think, there are wider implications to this. It's like Eventbrite, or people trying to get Eventbrite to cancel, when in fact Eventbrite have cancelled Sarah Fulmore's, the book launch. It's they've cancelled hosting the tickets for it, and people are so pleased about this. In fact, they've instigated it. They tried to get it done, but just the inability to think just a little bit further. Like, at some point, it might be you whose political speech or whose opinions are on the wrong side. Do you really want to create a society where, the powerful can basically silence the weak?
Well, that's
really
the moment.
Want.
That was a big moment that happened to me. Sorry, Helen.
But again, where is the left on this? They're doing it.
But also, I think
standing back and allowing it to happen. They're instigating it, and it's been the most extraordinary thing. I think.
Yeah.
It's one of the most interesting things I've seen.
The last night, a few nights ago, the Society of Authors, there was a motion about protecting freedom of speech, and it failed. Yeah. So you've got like under Joanne Harris, another mediocrity who's been raised to prominence by this activism. Joanne Harris hanging on by her fingernails, while also managing to get a motion passed preventing a motion that defends freedom of speech. These people are fucking crazy.
She's really unpleasant. She's just an unpleasant figure.
Horribly.
Everything she's been saying online, she's not a pleasant person. She's mean. She's petty. She's just very self-righteous. It's not positive qualities. She doesn't have any graciousness in her, any forgivingness. She's just mean and petty and bullying. That's exactly right.
Billy Bragg, he's come out. We've realized he's not a pleasant man. He is not a nice man. He's not an honest man. He doesn't make honest arguments. And again, so many people have disappointed me in their inability to make an honest argument. I mean, I don't really mind if somebody is opposed to me, as long as they're prepared to make an honest argument about it. I think that's fair. That's right. It's how it should be. That is actually the sort of the bedrock of a liberal democracy, isn't it?
That stuff.
But he's not. But he has. He. What did he tweet? Was it Kathleen Stock? Like, pretending that her saying "I'm tired" is her saying, "Oh my God, she's complaining about being offended.
Yeah.
And you're like, she's used the word tired, and she's not. And there was so many things wrong with it that you can't even start to you can't even start to defend it or to argue against it, because there's just too much wrong in it. I mean, he's basically taken one tweet and said, oh, look, she's saying this, which is completely the opposite. And you're like, where do you even start with that? You're just dishonest.
Yeah. Somebody who's had to have round-the-clock security to just be on a university campus, and I'd be pretty fucking tired if I, was going through that, like, for God's sake, to say that that's somehow some kind of signal that she's entitled or something like that. Give me a break,
But you're allowed to be offended. I mean, the point is that you're allowed to be offended, but what you do with that offense is the question, isn't it? If you're offended and then say, so you need to be silenced, rather than, oh, I'm offended, therefore I'm going to walk away or not listen. Those responses are completely different things. The right, like, everyone has the right to be personally offended, but you don't have, or you shouldn't have the right to silence those people who you think have offended you and try and get no one to hear them. I mean, that's the difference, isn't it?
Billy Bragg is like a weird Mary Whitehouse figure who is terribly worried about people being offended, but he thinks that, like, unlike Mary Whitehouse, Mary Whitehouse never wrote a letter campaign saying that J.K. Rowling should be raped, but this group does, and Billy Bragg is all for them, so it's an extraordinary side of history to be on.
But it is just like those two
a pearl clutching sociopath. Do you know what I mean? It's such a weird mix. A pearl clutching sociopath who hates women. Very, very odd mix. Sorry, Helen, what were you saying?
Yeah, well, just like there's been so many things that I think, oh well, everyone's now going to wake up. I mean, obviously,
yeah,
no, that's not
going to happen.
But some bloke literally looking down at these sort of homegrown boobs, like playing with them and squeezing them and going, oh yeah, like Joey and Friends. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
And,
how you doing?
Exactly that. Like, but and I'm thinking, okay, so now people are going to think, oh, well, actually, maybe I shouldn't be championing for this chap to be able to undress with women and girls.
Yeah.
Maybe I haven't been right here, but they still are.
Yeah.
And that's when you realise that it's a movement that is kind of, its point is to troll women. Its point is to say, look, we all know what's going on there, and I'm still going to champion it. What the fuck are you going to do about it?
Yeah, exactly. It's absolutely true. It's I've never seen such a show of power, and it's why I sometimes call this a white power movement, because I think that the men who are benefiting from it the most are white men. The group that's benefiting from it the most is white men. They're having the time of their lives.
Oh my God, and it's very explicit. I don't want to talk about this point too much, because there's someone I'd like us to have on the show at some point in the future so she can talk about it more. But there's this trope in social media trans world called "Don't ask me what I did in 2015," and the idea is that a lot of people who were trolls on 4chan, which is like a trolling site that was very popular, and who were alt-right and who were very into this like really extreme
trolling,
regressive, reactionary, angry politics, suddenly realized that became very unpopular, that being super racist and homophobic and mean-spirited and trollish made you unpopular, and they didn't get the attention they wanted, and they all shifted over to Reddit and started identifying as transgender instead. There's this massive movement of young alienated men who were just very mean-spirited and having a lot of problems and just taking the piss out of everyone, who tried to channel all that energy into being racist alt-right weirdos who were just trying to be mean to everyone and bully everyone. That didn't get them the popularity they wanted. Now they've all shifted to just announcing themselves as virtuous, self-righteous, trans women, and now they've got their little estrogen fueled, little chiclets and they're playing with. It's ridiculous, you
And
know.
we should mention, as Emily points out here, that there was a brilliant LGBT talk by Shan and who else was it? Shan and
Hannah.
Shan and Hannah. Yes.
Oh, I had the extraordinary pleasure of meeting them both.
Yes.
And one of the great honors of my life. They're such extraordinary young women.
But they got a standing ovation, and if
from several minutes long. Yeah.
If anyone wants to know how we are where we are, why we are where we are, when you think about the trickle down effect of crazy academic ideas from academia going to websites like Reddit, Tumblr, and then going into fucking society. It's a brilliant essay to watch, and we'll put it in the links below.
And I hope we can meet them sometime on the show, because I just think they're just some of the most extraordinary young women. They've been studying the social media impact of this in a very academic way, and this is what we need to do. I don't think a lot of all the older generations are taking seriously what has been going on. Shay. What's been going on sociologically to an entire generation of young people on the internet? People treat it like it's just superfluous silliness. It's not. It's modifying everything, you know? And there's just not enough people looking at this, researching this academically and putting it together. And they're just it's such
James Lindsay,
crucial area of research, and they're amazing. Yeah.
Again, to talk about the the thing we've skipped, but one of very important, another bit of the Big Bang, should we say, is what James Lindsay and Helen Pluckrose and
Peter Boghossian, I think was the other one.
Peter Boghossian discovered about academia in the US, which was that there was an entirely fake body of knowledge being built up because of all these queer theory postmodern academics quoting each other and citing each other. It's an extraordinary story, and their prank where they presented all these papers in, some of which got accepted, is still, like they nearly got accepted a part of Mein Kampf as a serious paper,
Unbelievable, yeah.
They were unfortunately, they were exposed before they could manage to get the results on that, but they were having success with getting these papers accepted. Now, if the academy is that what you call it? The academy?
Academia.
Yeah. If the academy is that corrupted that they would allow speeches by Hitler to get in there, and poison the kind of, what you might call the brain of a country, then, that's going to have effects. And it has had effects. The effects are people spitting on Stonewall veterans. That's the effect. Yeah. So I feel, again, there's so many examples here where maybe we should do a series or something like that. Maybe we should talk about first principles and do a theme thing, or maybe that would be a good theme for our next live show. I'd like to do a whole show on what does the word trans mean. What is it?
Yeah, let's just lay out a nice peaking argument from beginning to end, or something like that. Yeah,
and also, if anyone on the other side would like to come in and tell us what these words mean, if anyone would actually like to do that, I can promise you'll be treated with respect, and we don't even have to do that live. We could do that on camera. But no one will ever say yes, because your positions are crazy and indefensible.
No, we've offered, so it's just not there. There isn't anything on the other side. It's just scientological horseshit dialogue.
The point is that what would the argument look like? Because trans means whatever you kind of want it to mean.
Unfalsifiable gobbledygook, like queerness.
So you could
but then you have to be specific. You have to say what is a trans person? Is Eddie Izzard a trans person?
Yes. You could just say yes because he says he is. It's completely. It isn't something like like we were saying. Where you can say that you're gay or you can say that you're not gay, but it doesn't actually change if
whether or not
attracted to.
Yeah.
You can keep it to yourself for the whole of your life, but it's still there.
Sure.
But what is trans? A lot of people say, "Oh well, it's in me. It's that feeling.
Yeah,
I'm a man or a woman." But other people will say, "I have gender dysphoria," and then you've got a ton of the anime furries who just they want to look like something else. I saw somebody today, and it was an extraordinary thing. It was a video that somebody posted a TikTok, a woman with sort of like burgundy hair saying
Oh, I
that
saw that.
she was a trans man. And she actually said, but this is my vision board. And there was a picture of some anime or some drawings of some sort of chap with big sort of chest muscles but long hair. And I was like, it's like a mood board that you do for like a design, like if you're doing a fashion show or changing your interior, in your lounge. You put all sorts of things on a board, and you say, this is the sort of mood that I'm constructing. And this is basically what she'd done. She'd looked around and she thought, this is what I want to look like. I want to look like this, like drawing of a man. And she said, this is my vision board. And so now I am this person. She dyed her hair and she was like, I'm a bloke.
No, you really.
But I'm a bloke. I use he, him pronouns. And you're like, how can you even begin to argue against this? It's fucking nonsensical.
It's worse than nonsensical. It's dangerous because it's part of being a human being. You get one life in this universe. At least that's my opinion. That's my, and you're so extraordinarily lucky to have been born at the time that you are as a human mammal. This is your one life. This is what you got. And you have to take what you can get from it. You don't have a choice about the time you were born. You don't have a choice about who your parents are. You don't have a choice about where you were born. You don't have a choice about what your physical features are going to be. You don't have a choice about what your biological sex is. And you don't have a choice about what your sexual orientation is. You don't have a choice if you were born with some kind of blood disease or some kind of intersex condition. These are things, you get one life in your human body. And part of being a human being is learning to cope with the things that you don't have a choice in. And the entire trans and queer movement is teaching kids that everything in their whole lives is a fucking choice. And that's so dangerous. And all this stuff, the mood boards and everything, all this language, they're trying to assert control over things that they don't have control over. You don't have control over whether you're gay or straight. And it's important because to come out of the closet is to reckon with the fact that most of us don't choose to be, none of us choose to be gay. Nobody wants to be gay. We just are. Nobody wants to be male or female. We just are. And that's a huge part of the human existence, is to come to terms with that. And the T&Q movement is just psychologically damaging people because it's not helping them to come to terms with the whole world, like with the reality of life as a human being.
I mean, honestly, as a child, it's almost, you'll have sort of, like analysis paralysis. There's just so much that you can do that you end up sort of being like incredibly stressed because you don't know where to turn, as opposed to, you're a woman or a man. It is what it is, but you can still try and do whatever you want to do within the constraints of society, and you can try and change society, try and shape society. Everybody that acts against the norms, the trends, helps to maybe sort of shape society in the way that we would kind of want to.
Well, absolutely. And it goes the other way. When you don't acknowledge that you don't have a choice in these things, you're not acknowledging that, if you are born gay and you're trying to say that you're actually straight and a trans man, if you're born a lesbian, but you're trying to say you're actually a trans man, you're taking your empowerment and sense of control, and you're covering up the fact that you're trying to not be a lesbian because of homophobia, because to be lesbian isn't acceptable in society. So not only is it not true, you can't unlesbian yourself, no matter how much testosterone you inject, but you also are not acknowledging that we as a society have to work together so that everybody who's born a lesbian doesn't have to feel bad for being a lesbian. Do you know what I mean? Like, we all have to accept our womanhood, our manhood, our gayness, our straightness, our whateverness, because the only way society will ever get better is if we all realize that it's okay to be any of these things. And when you give people a choice, you're giving people basically an opportunity to bow out of the whole movement of trying to make gay rights and women's rights equal.
Here's the thing about this. This is another reason why it's all bollocks. Someone told me yesterday that I've seen a couple of reports about this, that Tesco are not allowing people to buy things if they don't have an app downloaded, something like that. Have you seen
the one in Chancery Lane or around that? You've got to have an app to go into the store.
They were thrown out. You know, another thing I saw today was that a woman was buying wine, and she had 2 children with her, and the shopkeeper said she couldn't have the wine because she might give it to the children. So what we have is corporations.
That was real. That happened.
Yes. I know that. I thought that would particularly shock you, Helen. But like they,
like no, there's only one kid left. I can't send to buy me wine.
I know. But my point is this, right? Tesco's and all these companies, they fucking love wrapping themselves in the trans flag. They're like Trump with the stars and stripes. You know, they kind of rub up and kind of hump it and kiss it, you know. But like the reason they do that, it's true. The reason they do that, the reason they hump and kiss the trans flag is because it changes nothing. It changes nothing. It doesn't help anyone. It actually does a lot of harm to people, but it changes nothing for them. That's the important thing. All it does for them is it gives them an extra way they can say that they're nice guys and they're working for the benefit of the community. Meanwhile, they're chucking people out because they haven't downloaded an app, you know? So like, again, it's another kind of, you know, unforeseen consequence of this stuff is that it's enormously strengthened the corporation's power over our lives. And they were introducing these things that we can't do anything about. PayPal went right back to charging people $2,500 for wrong opinions. No one fucking complained because they thought, well, we freaked out about it, but that was enough, you know. now it's done, you know. And so these corporations, they feel empowered. They're able to silence our voices. They're able to keep us out of shops. Do you know what I mean? And all this is happening while we're arguing amongst ourselves over whether Eddie Izzard is a fucking woman, you know.
Madness.
That's part of it, though, isn't it? But that's part of it. I mean, if you know, if big corporations can try and make us say that Eddie Izzard is a woman, what else can they do? You know, it is power. It's all the same. It's the sort of same zeitgeist, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And basically all these advances that corporations have made have happened because of a left that sawed its own legs off. Like the left has no power.
Shit. You know, there's loads of people who are championing like Eventbrite, PayPal. They're like it. The most extraordinary thing, like I said, how is it, you know, even if they can't see it for, you know, as a general point, can they not think, well, at some point it might be my opinion, you know, even if you have to be so absolutely like ridiculously selfish and only accept it if it's happening to you. Still, can you not consider that? It's amazing to me.
Wasn't that a great? There's a movie that's upcoming with what is that? With Kate Blanchett.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw that with the
so Camille Paglia. It doesn't come out till January, but Camille Paglia seems to have seen it. Maybe she had a screener or something, and she took a clip of she took a video of a 3-minute clip from the movie. This is Kate Blanchett, who is a music instructor and an impresario, and she's teaching a music student about Bach, and she's talking about Bach in this very academic, kind of artsy-fartsy way. It's really kind of compelling, but it's super pretentious. And then the kid just turns to her and says, "Oh, I'm just so over the cis het white men in music kind of thing," as if like you could just dismiss Bach, one of the greatest musicians of all times, because you know he's a cis white man. It's just nonsense. So she turns to him and she gives this in front of a classroom, this really eloquent rejoinder, like that's a very superficial, shallow way of looking at things. And then she asks him, this man is a visible minority, he's not white. You know, if you are going to be evaluated based on your identity bingo rather than based on your art, how would you feel? Like, you think you're being virtuous by judging people for being cis, white, and male, but it's just going to turn on you eventually, and you're going to be judged based on nothing but your skin color as a result, and your sex and your identity. His reaction to her making that really good point, like, why are you putting these people in boxes, because that's going to work against you in the long run, was to just call her a fucking bitch and march away. You know, so he just reached right for misogyny And then what was the line she said? Kate Blanchett said, "Oh, you're somebody whose soul has been forged in social media."
Yes,
and I thought, wow. So this is a film it's going to get a pretty wide release in cinemas. That's really targeting wokeness.
I mean, I did hear that somebody was saying, and I have absolutely no idea whether it's true or not, is that that's set up so that she gets a comeuppance later on in the film.
I knew it.
But I don't know. That's or I simply read it. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see if this movie is really addressing the issue of wokeness in academia in a way that.
But even if she is, it's still a good point.
Listen, before we head off, because we're coming up to time, I think. But can I ask people to keep mentioning us to Elon on Twitter, me, Stuart Campbell, Megan E. Murphy, Holly Lawford Smith.
Yep.
We're kind of trying to get back together on as a group. None of us did anything wrong. None of us did anything hateful. I have my archive of my Twitter archive to send to people. Actually, it's very funny, but I was reading all my exchanges with John Ronson and Billy Bragg the other day, and gosh, it's like.
But when you come back on, they'll all be there.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I don't know, because it's very funny, because I heard one Mastodon, they've all gone to Mastodon, another social network.
Yeah.
And one moderator did a post saying, could people please stop reporting each other? I'm getting sick of it. It's only since all these Twitter arrived that they're all trying to ban each other for hate speech. It's the funniest thing. Listen, Artie, when are you back from Dublin? Oh, he's frozen. I thought he was just being very quiet.
Yeah, me too. I thought he was being question. All right, we'll ask him.
Well, do you know when he's back from Dublin?
So it's a little choppy for a second there.
Hey,
are we back?
You're back.
Yeah.
Am I back? Are you there? Are we there?
Yeah, back from Dublin.
When are you back from Dublin, Artie?
I'm back in London on Monday.
Okay.
But
that was a very long
answer. Back to Canada for a little while after that. So
okay. All right. Well, listen, hopefully I'll see you before you head off again. Thanks for doing this one, even from Ireland, in what looks like a kind of a shrine to Artie, which I think is entirely appropriate.
There's an amazing drawing of a. Oh, can I take this off the wall for a second? It's look at this! Look at this unicorn! Isn't that so cute? It's a little unicorn.
That's very good.
That's very good. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like a teenage drawing of someone or other.
With a unicorn on the screen. That's perfect.
That's a good way to end.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys.
Let's do another one soon. And,
lovely to see everyone in the comments.
Oh yeah, and look, sorry.
Sláinte.
Yeah, no, I'll get rid of you. I'll say goodbye to you, and I'll just tell everybody the thing I'm going to, because otherwise it'll be awkward for you. But basically, just to say that the news about the Society of Authors is not all bad, because I think today or yesterday there was a resignation from someone really big in the Society of Authors. So Joanne Harris's victory might have been a Pyrrhic one. Is that the phrase? Anyway, thank you very much. Thanks to Artie and Helen, and I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.